Started.
Please state your full legal name for the record.
My name is Kathy Joanne Edwards.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please describe for the court your educational background.
I am a practicing attorney. I have a law degree gained from the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho in 1997. I also have a master's in psychology gained from Walden University in 2009, and I'm currently in the process of obtaining my doctorate in forensic psychology also at Walden University, and I anticipate that I'll be done in approximately 1 year.
How many times have you been an expert witness?
I have been subpoenaed as an expert witness approximately 20 times. To date, I've only testified in one case before. That will make today the second time that I've testified as an expert.
How much are you getting paid for your testimony today?
I'm getting paid my standard rate, which is $200 per hour.
Did you perform an evaluation on Mr. Bumble?
I did.
Why were you asked to evaluate Mr. Bumble?
I received an order from Judge Bob, and he asked me to provide an opinion as to the competence of Mr. Bumble to stand trial.
What legal definition is applicable to the referral question that you addressed when addressing Mr. Bumble?
The referral question has the applicable standard of competence to stand trial, which means, under the applicable federal law, is a person by reason of disease or defect, mental disease or defect, unable to appreciate the nature of the proceedings against him or to assist his attorney in his own defense.
What procedures and or tests did you perform during your evaluation?
I performed several psychological assessments. May I briefly look at my notes to refresh my memory?
Yes.
I performed the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, Personality Assessment Inventory, the Rorschach Ink Blot Test, and I used the Exner scoring system. I did the Bender Motor Gestalt Test, the Bender Motor Gestalt Test Immediate Recall, Ray's 15-item test, the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, the Structure Interview of Reported Symptoms, and the MacArthur Competence Assessment to a Criminal Adjudication. I also reviewed a variety of background documents provided to me by the court, including pleadings in the court case, FBI reports, and previous mental health records. After that, I did an observation of the defendant and an interview.
What were the results of your evaluation?
While it is a legal conclusion as to whether this gentleman is legally incompetent to stand trial, I did conclude that from a psychological standpoint, I do believe he is incompetent to stand trial.
Why do you believe that Mr. Bumble is not competent to stand trial?
Several things. First and foremost, his current level of psychosis prevents him from interacting with his attorney on any kind of a reasonable basis. He actually believes his attorney is a drug dealer who's speaking to him through the television. That will prevent him from sharing any kind of facts, from helping his attorney and confronting witnesses against him. He doesn't really appreciate the nature of the proceedings, although he does understand that he's criminally charged and he can relate the charge to conduct that he remembers. He still doesn't have an appreciation of the ultimate consequences that may happen.
Did you arrive at a diagnosis for Mr. Bumble?
I did. I found that he had an Axis 1 diagnosis of chronic schizophrenia, paranoid type. That's his primary diagnosis. I deferred on Axis 2. He had previously been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. However, his current psychosis may be masking those symptoms. I didn't see any, so I deferred the diagnosis.
Can you describe for the court the reasons for that diagnosis?
Mr. Bumble displays classic symptoms of schizophrenia, and several things are characteristic of the type of schizophrenia that I diagnosed. First of all, he has paranoid delusions. He hears auditory hallucinations. He displays several positive and negative symptoms. His conduct is erratic and psychotic, and again is characteristic of schizophrenia.
Is that diagnosis considered to be a mental disease or defect?
As we discussed before, I do believe that's a legal conclusion to be reached by the judge in this case. However, from a psychological standpoint, it is considered a mental disease or defect.
Why or why not?
I do believe that it is a mental disease or defect because schizophrenia is a diagnosable mental disorder found in the current version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. It does meet the 3 criteria that we use for a diagnosable mental illness. It's deviant, distressful, and dysfunctional to the individual who suffers from it.
Do you believe Mr. Bumble understands the proceedings today?
I don't believe he understands the nature of the proceedings. He knows he's in court. He knows there's a judge and there are attorneys, but he doesn't really appreciate the roles of the parties in these proceedings. And he understands that somehow there may be consequences for him as a result of these proceedings, but he has no comprehension of the nature of those consequences. He knows they'll be serious, but he couldn't explain to you today the consequences that he faces.
Why or why not?
Again, we talked about his psychosis. His current level of psychosis precludes his understanding of all the things that I just listed. As a matter of fact, his level of functioning is fairly severe. The global assessment of functioning that I did placed him at the level of 21, which is his highest level in the past year. That's a very, very low level of functioning. The scale is 0 to 100.
Do you think Mr. Bumble understands what he's charged with?
He can relate the idea of a criminal charge to conduct, so he does understand that he is criminally charged and even what the charge is.
Why or why not?
In discussions with Mr. Bumble, he was able to relate those facts to me. And again, he can relate the idea of a criminal charge to conduct, but doesn't appreciate the consequences of a criminal charge.
Do you think Mr. Bumble can work with his attorney to successfully defend himself?
No, I do not.
Why or why not?
I believe that his current level of paranoia, and in fact his confirmed delusion that his attorney is a drug dealer speaking to him through the television, will prevent him from sharing facts with his attorney and from working with him to develop legal strategies.
Do you have other information about Mr. Bumble that you feel would be helpful to the court?
None that I haven't shared in my report.
Thank you. You may step down.